My name is Myra Whitmore. I'm 35 years old, a cardiology resident, and the single mother of 3-year-old twins. 60 days ago, I woke up in an emergency room with internal bleeding, 3 broken ribs, and a phone clutched in my trembling hand. I had just been hit by a truck. The doctors said I needed immediate surgery or I might not survive the night. My babies, Lily and Lucas, were with a neighbor who had to leave for work in 2 hours. I called my parents. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial. "Mom, please, I need you to watch the twins. I'm going into surgery. I don't know if I'll make it." There was a pause. Then my mother's voice came through, cold and sharp. "Myra, you've always been so dramatic. Your father and I have concert tickets with Vanessa tonight. We've had these plans for months. You'll figure it out. You always do." Then she hung up. I stared at that phone for 30 seconds, bleeding internally, alone, and completely disposable to the people who raised me. So I made 2 calls. One to an emergency childcare service. I paid them $1,000 for 4 hours. The second call was to my bank. I canceled every single automatic payment I'd been sending my parents for the last 8 years. The mortgage, the insurance, the car payments, all of it. Gone. 3 weeks later, someone knocked on my door. And what happened next tore my family apart in the most beautiful way possible. Let me take you back to where this nightmare began. Growing up as the second daughter in the Whitmore family taught me one brutal lesson early. Love wasn't divided equally. It was earned. And no matter what I did, I could never earn enough. My older sister Vanessa was golden. Literally. She had this blonde hair that caught the light, green eyes that sparkled when she laughed, and a personality that filled every room she entered. She was magnetic. I was invisible. When Vanessa turned 16, she announced over dinner that she wanted to be a fashion designer. I watched my mother's eyes fill with tears of pure joy. My father stood up from his chair, walked around the table, and hugged her like she'd just discovered the cure for cancer. "Our little artist," he whispered into her hair. "You're going to set the world on fire, sweetheart." That night, our house felt like Christmas morning. There were phone calls to aunts and uncles. My father opened a bottle of expensive wine. My mother started researching design schools immediately. The air was electric with possibility and pride. 2 years later, I gathered my courage and told them I wanted to become a doctor. I had prepared for weeks. I had my grades printed out. I had research about medical schools. I had a whole speech about wanting to save lives and make a difference. I remember standing in the kitchen, my heart pounding, waiting for that same explosion of pride and joy. My father glanced up from his laptop. He nodded once. "That's sensible, Myra. Doctors make good money. Smart choice." Then he went back to typing. My mother smiled absently and asked if I could unload the dishwasher. That was it. Sensible. Not brilliant. Not inspiring. Just sensible. I swallowed the disappointment like a pill and decided I would prove myself through achievement. I stopped sleeping. I studied until my eyes burned. I gave up friendships, parties, anything that didn't get me closer to that white coat. 4 years of undergrad where I graduated summa cum laude. 4 years of medical school where I ranked in the top 5% of my class. 3 years of a cardiology residency that nearly broke me. I was chasing their approval like it was oxygen, and I was suffocating. The day I graduated from medical school was supposed to be my moment. I wore my white coat for the first time. I walked across that stage with my diploma in hand. I searched the crowd for my parents' faces during the ceremony. They weren't there. Empty seats where they should have been. My name was called. I shook hands with the dean. I smiled for the official photo. Inside, I felt hollow. They showed up 2 hours after the ceremony ended. My mother rushed toward me, flustered, her hair messy from the wind. Oh, honey, we're so sorry. Traffic was absolutely insane. My father checked his phone while she talked. Vanessa had a meeting with a buyer from Nordstrom. It was last minute. We had to drive her downtown first. You understand, right? I nodded. I always nodded. There were no flowers, no celebration dinner, no proud Facebook post. Just a quick photo in the parking lot where my mother held her purse awkwardly and my father checked his watch twice. Then they left because Vanessa needed emotional support after her meeting didn't go well. Compare that to Vanessa's first fashion show 3 years earlier. My parents flew to New York. They stayed in a 5-star hotel. They sat front row. My father took 17 photos and posted every single one on Facebook with captions like, "Our talented daughter is changing the world," and "So blessed to call this visionary our child." I got a parking lot snapshot and a text that said, "Congrats, honey." I told myself it was fine. Fashion is unpredictable. Vanessa needed more support. Medicine is stable. I could stand on my own. But what I didn't know yet was that their favoritism wasn't just emotional, it was financial. And I was the one paying for it. The financial bleeding started 8 years ago, right after I finished medical school. I had just signed my residency contract. The pay was terrible, but I was finally earning something. I was in my tiny apartment, eating ramen and celebrating the fact that I could maybe afford real groceries next month when my father called. His voice sounded strained, embarrassed. "Myra, sweetheart, I need to ask you something. I hate to do this, but we're in a bit of a situation." My stomach dropped. I thought someone was sick. I thought something terrible had happened. "Dad, what's wrong? Is everyone okay?" He cleared his throat. "Everyone's fine. It's just that things are tight this month. Really tight. The mortgage payment is due in 3 days and we're short. I know you just started your residency, but could you help us out? Just this once. We'll pay you back as soon as things turn around." Just this once. Those 3 words should have been a warning, but I was desperate to be needed by them. Desperate to finally be the daughter who mattered. I transferred $2,400 that same night. It was nearly half of my first paycheck. I ate ramen for 6 weeks straight. I didn't care. They needed me. For the first time in my life, I was the solution instead of the backup plan. My father called 2 days later. "Myra, you saved us. Thank you so much, sweetheart. We'll pay you back soon. I promise." That promise never materialized, and just this once became every single month. First, it was the mortgage. Then my father called about health insurance. His company had dropped their coverage and the premiums were $800 a month. Could I help? Just until he found a new plan. I set up an automatic transfer. Then it was the car repair. $1,500. Then the roof started leaking. $3,000. Then the furnace died in the middle of winter. $4,000. Every time I said yes. Every time I told myself this was what family did. You help each other. You sacrifice. You show up. But here's the twisted part. They never showed up for me. When I got pregnant with the twins, their father walked out during my 5th month. I was terrified, alone, and completely overwhelmed. I called my parents from the hospital after a bleeding scare. I was sobbing so hard I could barely speak. "Mom, please, I need you. I'm so scared. Can you come?" There was a pause. Then my mother's voice, distracted and distant. "Oh, honey, I wish we could. But Vanessa just got back from Milan and she's having a really hard time. The show didn't go as well as she hoped. She really needs us right now. You're strong, Myra. You'll be fine." They didn't come to the hospital that day. They didn't come when the twins were born 5 weeks later. They didn't come during the first month when I was drowning in diapers, feedings every 2 hours, and postpartum depression so dark I couldn't see the surface. But you know what did come? The automatic bank transfers. Every single month. $2,400 for the mortgage. $800 for insurance. Whatever emergency expense they texted me about. I kept a spreadsheet. I don't know why. Maybe I needed proof. Maybe some part of me knew I'd need evidence one day. I opened that spreadsheet 2 weeks after the accident, sitting in my living room with my ribs still aching. I scrolled through 8 years of payments. The total at the bottom made my hands shake. $318,000. I had given them over $300,000 while working a resident's salary, raising twins alone, and receiving nothing but indifference in return. I stared at that number for a long time. Then I opened my banking app and canceled every automatic payment. Every single one. I didn't call them. I didn't explain. I just stopped. And then I waited for the fallout. It came faster than I expected. The accident itself is a blur of headlights, screaming metal, and the sensation of my body being thrown sideways like a rag doll. I was driving home after a 16-hour shift. My eyes were heavy, but I was alert. The light turned green. I pulled into the intersection. A truck ran the red light going 60 miles an hour and slammed into my driver's side door. I don't remember the impact. I don't remember the ambulance. I woke up in the emergency room with a doctor standing over me, her face serious. "Miss Whitmore, you have internal bleeding and 3 broken ribs. We need to get you into surgery immediately. Do you have someone who can care for your children?" I nodded, my head swimming with pain and fear. "I'll call my parents." That phone call is burned into my memory like a scar. I could barely hold the phone. My voice was shaking. "Mom, I've been in an accident. I need emergency surgery. Please, I need you to pick up Lily and Lucas from the neighbor's house and watch them. I don't know how long I'll be in surgery. Please." Silence. Then my mother's voice, annoyed and cold. "Myra, are you serious right now? Your father and I have had tickets to see Vanessa's favorite band for 3 months. She's been so stressed lately, and this is our bonding night with her. Can't you call someone else? You always have a backup plan." I felt something break inside me. Something fundamental. "Mom, I might die on this table. I'm bleeding internally. I need you." Another pause. Then words I will never forget. "You've always been so dramatic and needy, Myra. We have plans. Figure it out yourself." She hung up. I stared at that phone through tears of pain and disbelief. A nurse noticed and came over. "Honey, are you okay? Did you reach someone?" I shook my head. "Can I borrow your phone? I need to call a childcare service." From my hospital bed 30 minutes before surgery, I called an emergency nanny service and paid them $1,000 to pick up my twins and care for them overnight. The woman on the phone was kind. She said they'd send someone immediately. She wished me luck in surgery. A stranger showed me more compassion in 3 minutes than my parents had in 34 years. As they wheeled me toward the operating room, I made a decision. A cold, clear, final decision. I pulled out my phone one last time. I opened my banking app. I found every single automatic payment to my parents, the mortgage, the insurance, the utilities I'd started covering last year. All of it. I canceled every single one. Then I blocked their number and closed my eyes as the anesthesia pulled me under. If I died on that table, at least I'd die knowing I wasn't their ATM anymore. I survived the surgery. 4 hours of internal repairs. I woke up alone in a recovery room with no flowers, no family, no one. Just the steady beep of monitors and the ache in my chest that had nothing to do with broken ribs. The nurse told me my twins were safe. The nanny service had picked them up, and they were staying overnight at a licensed facility. I cried with relief. Then I cried with rage. Strangers had saved my children. Strangers had shown up. My parents had chosen a concert. I stayed in the hospital for 4 days. Not once did my parents call. Not once did they text. Radio silence. I figured they didn't even know about the accident. Or worse, they knew and didn't care. I went home, hugged my babies until they squirmed away, and tried to rebuild my life. For 3 weeks, I heard nothing. No calls, no apologies, nothing. I started to think maybe I was finally free of them. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, someone knocked on my door, and everything exploded. I was folding laundry when the knocking started. Not polite knocking, aggressive pounding that made my twins look up from their toys with wide eyes. I walked to the door and checked the peephole. My father. His face was red, his jaw clenched. My mother stood behind him, arms crossed. I took a deep breath and opened the door. My father didn't say hello. He didn't ask how I was healing. He pushed past me into my apartment, my mother following close behind. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" His voice was loud enough to make Lucas start crying. I picked up my son and held him close, my ribs screaming in protest. "Keep your voice down, you're scaring the kids." My mother looked around my apartment like she'd never seen it before, like she hadn't been ignoring my existence for years. "Myra, we need to talk. Now." I put Lucas down and turned on a cartoon to distract the twins. Then I faced my parents with a calm I didn't feel. "What do you want?" My father's face was purple with rage. "You stopped the payments. All of them. Do you have any idea what you've done? The bank called about the mortgage. We're 2 months behind, our insurance lapsed. We got a cancellation notice yesterday. What the hell is wrong with you?" I stared at him. "What's wrong with me? I was in a car accident. I had emergency surgery. I almost died. I called you begging for help with your grandchildren and you hung up on me to go to a concert. That's what's wrong." My mother waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, don't be so dramatic. You're clearly fine. You're standing here, aren't you? We had important plans with your sister. She needed us." Something snapped. I needed you. I was bleeding internally. I was terrified. I was alone. And you chose a concert. My father stepped closer, his finger pointing at my chest. "You're a doctor, Myra. You make good money. We raised you, fed you, put a roof over your head. You owe us. That money isn't a favor. It's payback for everything we did for you." I laughed. Actually laughed. It was a bitter, broken sound. "Payback? I've given you over $300,000 in 8 years. I paid your mortgage while living in a studio apartment. I paid your insurance while I was pregnant and alone. I paid for everything while you gave Vanessa your time, your love, your pride. I gave you money. You gave me nothing." My mother's face twisted. "That's not fair. We love you." I shook my head. "No, you don't. You love what I provide. You love my bank account. But me? The actual person? You've never seen me." My father's voice dropped to something dangerous. "If you don't restart those payments by Friday, we'll make your life hell. We'll tell everyone what a selfish, ungrateful daughter you are. We'll turn this family against you." I walked to my desk and pulled out a folder. My hands were steady now. Steady and cold. "Go ahead. Tell everyone, but I'll show them this." I opened the folder and spread 8 years of bank statements across my coffee table. Every payment highlighted, every transfer documented. $318,000, while you told me I was a burden, while you skipped my graduation, while you abandoned me when I almost died. Go ahead, Dad. Tell the family. I dare you. My mother's face went pale. She looked at the papers like they were evidence at a crime scene. My father's jaw worked, but no sound came out. Finally, my mother's voice came out small. "Myra, please. We'll lose the house." I met her eyes. "Then lose it. I don't care anymore. Get out." They didn't move. I said, "Get out." This time my voice was steel. They left. The door closed, and I collapsed on the couch shaking. But I wasn't done. The real reckoning was still coming. For 2 days I heard nothing. I started to think maybe that was the end. Maybe they'd slink away quietly and I could finally move on with my life. Then my phone started exploding. Text after text from relatives I barely spoke to. Aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't heard from in years. All of them with the same message. How could you do this to your parents? They raised you, and this is how you repay them? You should be ashamed of yourself. I sat on my couch reading message after message, my blood boiling. My parents had done exactly what they threatened. They'd spun the story, made themselves the victims. Poor, struggling parents with an ungrateful, selfish daughter who abandoned them in their time of need. Not a single person asked from my side. Not one. Except for one message that came through that night. It was from my grandfather on my mother's side. Grandpa Joe. He was 83, sharp as a knife, and the only person in my family who had ever really seen me. Myra, I'm hearing stories. I don't believe them. Call me. I called him immediately. His voice was warm and familiar. Sweetheart, talk to me. What's going on? I told him everything. The years of payments, the accident, the phone call, the confrontation. I told him about the $300,000 and the folder of bank statements. I told him about feeling invisible my entire life. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then my grandfather said something that changed everything. I want you to forward me those bank statements. Every single one. And I need you to trust me. Can you do that? I didn't hesitate. Yes. I spent the next hour forwarding 8 years of financial records to my grandfather. He thanked me and told me to sit tight. Don't respond to anyone. Don't defend yourself. Just wait. This is going to get handled. I didn't know what he meant, but I trusted him. He was the only one who'd ever shown up for me without conditions. 3 days later, my phone rang. It was my mother. Her voice was panicked. Myra, what did you tell Grandpa Joe? He's called a family meeting. He says it's urgent. He says everyone has to be there. What did you do? I felt a smile spread across my face. I told him the truth, Mom. That's all. She hung up. I got a text from my grandfather an hour later. Family meeting tomorrow at my house, 2 o'clock. Be there. Bring the twins. Trust me. I showed up at my grandfather's house the next day with Lily and Lucas in tow. My stomach was in knots. Cars lined the driveway. My parents' car. Vanessa's car. My aunts' and uncle's cars. The whole family was there. I walked in holding my twins' hands, and the room went silent. My mother looked pale. My father looked furious. Vanessa looked confused. My grandfather sat in his armchair like a king on a throne. Everyone sit down. His voice was calm but commanding. People obeyed. I sat on the couch, my twins climbing into my lap. My grandfather looked around the room slowly. I called this meeting because there's been a lot of talk lately, a lot of stories about Myra being selfish and ungrateful. I wanted everyone to hear the truth, the real truth, not the version you've been fed. My mother stood up. Dad, this is between us and Myra, it's private. My grandfather's eyes went cold. Sit down, Linda. My mother sat. My grandfather pulled out a folder. My folder. The one with all the bank statements. He held it up. Does anyone here know how much money Myra has given your mother and father over the last 8 years? Silence. No one spoke. My grandfather opened the folder. $318,000. The room erupted. People gasped. My aunt's hand flew to her mouth. My uncle leaned forward. That can't be right. My grandfather's voice cut through the noise. Oh, it's right. And now I'm going to tell you exactly what she got in return. The room fell silent again, and my grandfather began to speak. My grandfather pulled out a stack of papers and placed them on the coffee table in front of him. His hands were steady. His voice was sharp. These are 8 years of bank statements. Myra sent me every single one. I've spent the last 3 days going through them with a lawyer. My father's face went white. A lawyer? Dad, why would you do that? My grandfather ignored him and continued. Monthly mortgage payments of $2,400 for 8 consecutive years. That's $230,000. Health insurance premiums of $800 a month after your company dropped coverage. That's another $76,000. Then there are the emergencies, car repairs, roof repairs, a new furnace, medical bills, all of it documented. All of it paid by Myra while she was earning a resident's salary and raising 2 children alone. My Aunt Sarah looked at my mother. Linda, is this true? My mother's lips pressed into a thin line. We were struggling. Myra was doing well. She wanted to help. My grandfather's fist came down on the armrest. She wanted to help? She was guilted into helping. And do you know what she got in return? Let me tell you. He pulled out his phone and started reading from notes he'd clearly prepared. When Myra graduated medical school, one of the proudest achievements of her life, you showed up 2 hours late because you were dropping Vanessa off for a meeting. No flowers, no dinner, a parking lot photo, and then you left. My mother opened her mouth to speak, but my grandfather held up his hand. I'm not finished. When Myra was pregnant and scared after a bleeding episode, she called you begging for support. You told her you couldn't come because Vanessa needed you more. Vanessa looked genuinely shocked. Wait. What? I didn't know that. My grandfather turned to her. No, sweetheart, I don't imagine you did. Your parents have spent your entire life making you the center of the universe while Myra paid the bills in the shadows. He turned back to the room. And here's the worst part. 2 months ago, Myra was in a car accident. She had internal bleeding. She needed emergency surgery. She called her parents, your daughter, and begged them to watch her children because she didn't know if she'd survive. The room was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. My grandfather's voice dropped to something lethal. And do you know what Linda said? He looked directly at my mother. Tell them, Linda. Tell them what you said to your daughter when she thought she might die. My mother's face crumbled. Tears started streaming down her cheeks. I didn't mean it that way. My grandfather stood up. Tell them. My mother's voice came out in a broken whisper. I told her we had plans with Vanessa. I told her to figure it out herself. My Aunt Sarah gasped. Linda, you didn't. My Uncle Mark looked horrified. She almost died and you went to a concert? My father tried to defend her. We didn't know it was that serious. Myra always exaggerates. My grandfather's voice boomed. She had internal bleeding and 3 broken ribs. She paid a stranger $1,000 to care for her children while she went into surgery. A stranger showed up for her. Her own parents didn't. The room exploded. Everyone started talking at once, shouting, accusing. My mother was crying openly now. My father was trying to shout over everyone. Vanessa sat frozen, staring at me with an expression I couldn't read. My grandfather whistled sharply. Everyone stopped. Here's what's going to happen. Myra doesn't owe you people a damn thing. Not money, not time, not forgiveness. She gave you everything and you gave her nothing. If anyone in this family has a problem with her cutting off the money, you can answer to me. He looked at my parents. And if you ever call her a burden again, I will make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of parents you really are. My mother stood up, sobbing. Please, Myra, we're sorry. We didn't realize. I stood up too, holding my twins close. You realized. You just didn't care. And then I walked out. I sat in my car outside my grandfather's house. my hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to process what had just happened. My twins were babbling in the back seat, oblivious to the nuclear bomb that had just detonated inside. My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. "Can we talk? Please?" I stared at that message for a long moment. Vanessa and I hadn't had a real conversation in years. We existed in the same family but lived in completely different worlds. I almost ignored it. Then another text came through. "I didn't know. I swear to God, Myra, I didn't know any of this." Against my better judgment, I texted back. "Meet me at Riverside Park in 20 minutes. She replied immediately. "I'll be there." I drove to the park, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to believe her. Part of me thought this was just another manipulation. I parked and got the twins out. They ran toward the playground while I sat on a bench. 10 minutes later, Vanessa pulled up. She walked over slowly like she was approaching a wild animal. Her eyes were red. She'd been crying. She sat down next to me, keeping a careful distance. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, she broke the silence. "I didn't know you were paying for everything. I didn't know about the accident. I didn't know they treated you like that." I kept my eyes on my kids. "They never told you?" She shook her head. "Never. I knew you helped them sometimes, but I thought it was like a few $100 here and there, not $300,000, not your entire salary." I had no idea. I turned to look at her. "And the rest of it? Did you know they missed my graduation? Did you know they didn't come when I was pregnant and scared? Did you know they've spent our entire lives making me feel invisible?" Vanessa's face crumpled. "I knew they favored me. I'm not blind. But I thought that was just normal parent stuff. I didn't realize how bad it was. I didn't realize they were bleeding you dry while I got everything." She wiped her eyes. "Myra, I'm so sorry. I should have noticed. I should have said something. I was selfish and clueless, and I'm so sorry." I wanted to stay angry. I wanted to keep that wall up. But sitting there, looking at my sister cry for the first time in my memory, something shifted. "You really didn't know about the accident?" She shook her head violently. "No. They told me they couldn't come to the concert last minute because Dad wasn't feeling well. I was annoyed, but I went with friends instead. If I had known you were in the hospital, I would have been there, I swear." I believed her. I don't know why, but I did. "They lied to both of us." Vanessa nodded. "They've been lying to everyone, making themselves look like victims when you've been holding them together for years." She turned to face me fully. "What they said to you during that phone call when you needed surgery. That's unforgivable. I don't care if there are parents. That's unforgivable." We sat in silence for a while, watching Lily and Lucas play. Finally, Vanessa spoke again. "What are you going to do now?" I took a deep breath. "I'm done with them. Completely. No more money, no more chances. They made their choice." Vanessa nodded slowly. "I don't blame you, not even a little bit." Then she hesitated. "What about us? Are we done too?" I looked at her. Really looked at her. She wasn't the golden child right now. She was just my sister, flawed and human and genuinely sorry. "I don't know yet, but this conversation is a start." She smiled weakly. "I'll take a start." She stood up. "I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to tell them exactly what I think about what they did to you. And I'm going to stop taking their help too. I don't want anything they built on your back." I felt something crack in my chest. Something that had been frozen for years. "Thank you." She hugged me carefully, like I might break. "I'm here now. If you'll let me be." She left, and I sat there with my twins, feeling lighter than I had in months. But the story wasn't over. My parents had one more move to make, and it was worse than I imagined. 2 weeks passed in relative peace. I heard through my grandfather that my parents were panicking. The bank had started foreclosure proceedings, their insurance had lapsed, and my father needed a prescription refill that cost $800 out of pocket. They were drowning without my money. Part of me felt guilty. That part got smaller every day. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, I got a call from my twins' daycare. "Miss Whitmore, there's a situation. Your parents are here trying to pick up Lily and Lucas. They're not on the approved list. We've told them no, but they're refusing to leave. Can you come down here?" My blood went cold. I was at the hospital finishing my shift. "Do not let them take my children. I'm calling the police right now and I'll be there in 15 minutes. I hung up and immediately dialed 911. "I need police at Little Sunshine Daycare on Maple Street. My parents are attempting to take my children without permission. I do not have a custody agreement with them. This is attempted kidnapping." The dispatcher took my information and said officers were on the way. I ran to my car and broke every speed limit getting to that daycare. When I pulled up, there were 2 police cars already there. I rushed inside. My parents were standing in the lobby, my mother crying, my father arguing loudly with an officer. The daycare director saw me and rushed over. "Your children are safe. They're in the back room with a teacher. They don't know what's happening." Relief flooded through me. "Thank you for calling me. Thank you for not releasing them." I walked over to the officers. One of them turned to me. "Are you Myra Whitmore?" I nodded. "These are your parents?" I looked at them. My mother was sobbing. My father looked desperate and angry. "Yes. They are not authorized to pick up my children. Ever. I need to file a report." The officer nodded and pulled out a notepad. My father stepped forward. "Myra, please. We just wanted to see our grandchildren. We haven't seen them in months." I turned to him, my voice ice cold. "You tried to take my children from daycare without permission. That's kidnapping." My mother wailed. "We would never hurt them. We're their grandparents. We have rights." The officer shook his head. "Actually, ma'am, grandparents don't have automatic rights to grandchildren. If the parent says no, that's the end of it." My father's face twisted into something ugly. "This is about the money, isn't it? You're punishing us by keeping our grandchildren away." I laughed. Actually laughed. "No, Dad. This is about you calling me a burden while I was bleeding in a hospital. This is about you choosing a concert over your daughter's life. This is about 8 years of being used. The money was just the symptom. Your cruelty is the disease." The officer looked between us. "Miss Whitmore, do you want to press charges?" I thought about it. I really did. Then I shook my head. "No. But I want a restraining order. I want it documented that they tried to take my children, and I want them trespassed from this daycare." The director nodded. "Already done. They're banned from the property." The officer turned to my parents. "You need to leave now. If you attempt contact with Miss Whitmore or her children again, she can pursue a restraining order, and you will be arrested. Do you understand?" My father's jaw clenched. "This isn't over, Myra." The officer stepped forward. "Sir, that sounds like a threat. I suggest you leave now before I change my mind about arresting you." My parents left, my mother still crying, my father throwing one last hateful look over his shoulder. I gave my statement to the police. I updated the daycare's security notes. Then I went to the back room and held my twins until my hands stopped shaking. That night, I got a call from my grandfather. "I heard what happened. Are you okay?" I took a shaky breath. "I am now. But Grandpa, I need to ask you something. Why did you help me? Why did you stand up for me when no one else did?" His answer made me cry. "Because you deserved it, sweetheart. You always did." The restraining order was filed the next morning. My grandfather connected me with his lawyer, a sharp woman in her 50s named Margaret, who took one look at my documentation and said, "We're getting you full protection. No contact. No exceptions." The hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks out. In the meantime, I tried to rebuild some sense of normalcy. Work, kids, therapy. I started seeing a counselor who specialized in family trauma. It helped. But my parents weren't done. They couldn't take my children, so they went after my reputation. It started with social media posts. My mother wrote a long, heartbreaking story on Facebook about how her cruel daughter had abandoned her aging parents in their time of need. How I'd cut them off without warning. How I was keeping their precious grandchildren away out of spite. The post went viral in our family's social circle. Hundreds of comments, most of them attacking me. What kind of doctor has no compassion for her own parents? Those poor people raised her, and this is the thanks they get? I hope she's ashamed of herself. My phone exploded with messages from distant relatives and family friends. People I hadn't spoken to in years felt entitled to lecture me about respect and family loyalty. I blocked dozens of numbers. Then it escalated. My mother started calling my hospital. She claimed I was mentally unstable. She said I was having a breakdown and shouldn't be treating patients. She called 3 times in 1 week. The third time, my supervisor called me into his office. "Myra, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Are you okay? Is something going on at home that's affecting your work?" My stomach dropped. "My mother called you?" He nodded, looking uncomfortable. "She called the main line and said some concerning things. I don't believe them, but I have to ask. Are you struggling with anything that might impact your ability to care for patients?" I took a deep breath. My parents are retaliating against me because I stopped giving them money. I'm in the process of getting a restraining order. They tried to take my children from daycare without permission last week. Now they're trying to sabotage my career. His expression shifted from concern to anger. "Are you serious?" I pulled out my phone and showed him the police report from the daycare incident. His jaw tightened. "This is harassment. You need to document every contact they make with this hospital. Forward any emails or messages to HR. We'll handle this." Relief washed over me. "Thank you." He shook his head. "You're one of the best residents we have. If they call again, they'll be told to stop, or we'll pursue legal action." That night, I called my grandfather and told him what happened. He was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "I'm cutting them off too." I blinked. "What?" His voice was firm. "Your grandmother left me a substantial estate when she passed. I've been helping your parents here and there over the years. Not anymore. I'm rewriting my will. Everything I have is going to you, Vanessa, and your cousins. Your parents get nothing." I felt tears sting my eyes. "Grandpa, you don't have to do that." His voice softened. "Yes, I do. They've shown me exactly who they are. And I'm ashamed I didn't see it sooner. You deserved better, Myra. You deserved so much better." We talked for another hour. He told me stories about my grandmother, who had passed when I was 10. How she would have been furious about how I'd been treated. How she would have fought for me. I felt a connection to her I'd never felt before. The restraining order hearing arrived. I walked into that courtroom with my lawyer, my documentation, and my grandfather by my side. My parents sat on the other side with a cheap lawyer who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. The judge reviewed the evidence, the bank statements, the police report, the hospital complaints. When she looked up, her expression was cold. "I'm granting the restraining order. Full no contact. If you violate it, you will be arrested." My mother sobbed. My father stared at me with pure hatred. And I walked out of that courthouse finally free. 3 months passed. 3 months of peace I didn't know was possible. I stopped jumping every time my phone rang. I stopped checking over my shoulder in parking lots. The restraining order held. My parents made no attempts to contact me. At first, I thought they were planning something, some new angle of attack. But according to my grandfather, they were just trying to survive. They'd lost the house. Foreclosure went through 6 weeks after I cut them off. They moved into a small apartment on the other side of town. My father had to take a part-time job at a hardware store to make ends meet. My mother was working as a receptionist at a dental office. For the first time in 8 years, they were living within their actual means. Vanessa called me once a week. We were slowly rebuilding something that resembled a sisterly relationship. She'd moved out of our parents' orbit too. She got her own apartment, started taking freelance design work, and stopped accepting their guilt trips. I didn't realize how much they manipulated me. She told me during one of our coffee meetings. Every time I tried to be independent, they'd tell me I was abandoning them, that I was ungrateful. I see it now. I squeezed her hand. It's not your fault. They're good at manipulation. They had decades of practice. She smiled sadly. We both deserved better parents. One afternoon, I was at the park with my twins when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Hello? A woman's voice I didn't recognize. Is this Dr. Myra Whitmore? I tensed. Who's asking? The woman cleared her throat. My name is Patricia Chen. I'm a social worker with County Services. I'm calling about your parents. My heart sank. What happened? She spoke carefully. They're both fine physically, but they've applied for emergency financial assistance and housing support. During the intake process, they mentioned they have a daughter who's a doctor. We're required to contact adult children to see if they can provide support before approving certain benefits. I'm calling to ask if you're able or willing to help them. I closed my eyes. Even now, even after everything, they were trying to pull me back in. Ms. Chen, I have a restraining order against my parents. They are not allowed to contact me. I am not able or willing to provide them with any financial support. There was a pause. I see. May I ask why there's a restraining order? I gave her the short version. The years of financial exploitation. The abandonment during my medical emergency. The attempt to take my children. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I'm going to make a note in their file that family support is not available due to documented abuse and a legal no-contact order. They'll be processed for benefits based solely on their own circumstances. I'm sorry you went through that, Dr. Whitmore. I felt a weight lift. Thank you for understanding. After I hung up, I sat on that park bench and watched my twins play. They were happy, healthy, safe. They would never know what it felt like to be the second choice. I would make sure of it. That evening, my grandfather called with news. Your father reached out to me. He wanted to know if I'd reconsider helping them financially. I closed my eyes. What did you say? My grandfather chuckled. I told him I'd rather set my money on fire than give them another cent. Then I told him if he ever contacts you again, I'll make sure the entire family knows every detail of what they did. He hung up on me. I laughed, despite myself. You're ruthless, Grandpa. His voice turned serious. I'm protective. There's a difference. How are you doing, sweetheart? Really? I looked around my small apartment, at the toys scattered on the floor, at the photos of my twins on the wall, at the life I'd built with no help from the people who were supposed to love me most. I'm okay. Actually, I'm better than okay. I'm free. He made a satisfied sound. Good. That's exactly what you deserve. We talked for a while longer, then said goodnight. I put my twins to bed, read them stories, kissed their foreheads, and for the first time in my life, I felt complete. 6 months after that courtroom, I'm living a life I never thought possible. My twins are thriving. My career is flourishing. I got promoted to chief resident last month. Vanessa and I have dinner every week. My grandfather and I talk almost every day. I'm building the family I deserved with the people who actually showed up. My parents sent one letter after the restraining order expired. It arrived last week. I didn't open it. I threw it away. Whatever apology or guilt trip or manipulation it contained doesn't matter anymore. They had 34 years to see me. They chose not to. That's on them. I learned something important through all of this. You don't owe anyone access to your life just because they're family. Blood doesn't give people the right to drain you dry. Walking away from toxicity isn't cruel. It's survival. I hope my story helps someone out there who's struggling with a similar situation. You're not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon for more real-life stories about justice, revenge, and finding peace. The next story is coming soon, and trust me, it's even more unbelievable. Take care of yourselves. You deserve it.